The moment David's eyes narrowed on our front porch, that scorching July afternoon, I knew the man I'd married had vanished. His pressed blue shirt contrasted with the rage coloring his face as he thrust his finger toward me, demanding our children and everything we'd built together. Emma and Ethan clutched my legs, their small bodies trembling against mine as their father, a man who once read them bedtime stories with character voices, became someone unrecognizable. I stood firm between them and his fury, the divorce papers still warm in my hand, discovering a strength I never knew I possessed. What I couldn't possibly know then was that his desperation had nothing to do with love and everything to do with what I was about to uncover. Before we dive in, I'm curious where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to our channel because your support means everything to me. I used to believe that love made you blind. Now I know it just adjusts your vision slowly, like eyes in darkness, until abnormal things look perfectly normal. That's how I missed the signs for so long. 7 years as a promising attorney at Mitchell & Reed, and I walked away without a second thought when David launched his investment firm. Parker Financial Solutions sounded so solid, so trustworthy, just like David himself, with his perfect smile, his way of making everyone feel special, especially our children. Emma, with her serious eyes always watching, learning, Ethan, with his boundless energy and trust. We were the perfect family in our colonial house, with the white picket fence in Oakwood Heights. The neighbors envied us. My parents questioned my decision to step back from my career, but eventually they too fell under David's spell. "You've never looked happier," my mother said at our last family dinner. Just 3 weeks ago, she didn't see how my smile froze when David cut me off mid-sentence. She missed how he controlled every conversation, how his phone never left his side, how my opinions had slowly become irrelevant. The dinner party I hosted for David's clients last month was picture perfect. Everyone remarked on our beautiful home, our well-behaved children, the gourmet meal I'd spent days preparing. Later that night, David mentioned expanding his client base internationally. "We're going to need a bigger house soon," he said, kissing my forehead before falling asleep. I lay awake wondering why that didn't excite me. I was preparing for another client dinner yesterday, organizing David's home office, something he usually forbade but had requested because he was too swamped with this new Japanese investor. That's when I found them, divorce papers, already filled out, waiting for my signature. Beside them, a sticky note in David's handwriting: "Have Sarah sign after Thompson dinner. Movers confirmed for the 30th. My hands trembled as I sat in his leather chair. The life I thought we had was ending, and I hadn't even been consulted, just informed. As I placed the papers back exactly as I'd found them, my elbow knocked a folder from his desk. Bank statements spilled across the floor. Foreign accounts, massive transfers, numbers that made no sense for our family finances, and a single photograph that changed everything. David with his arm around a man I recognized from the news. A man recently arrested for securities fraud. I spent the afternoon in a daze, mechanically preparing dinner while the children played in the backyard. My mind raced through options. Confront him? Pretend I saw nothing? Call a lawyer? The weight of the discovery pressed against my chest until I could barely breathe. When David's car pulled into the driveway earlier than expected, my stomach knotted. He never came home before 7. Something was wrong. The front door crashed open. "Where are they?" David's voice boomed through the house. Not hello. Not I'm home. Just demand, sharp as broken glass. "The papers?" My voice sounded small, even to me. "I found them this morning." His face transformed, not with guilt or even anger, but calculation. His eyes darted around as if reassessing a battlefield. "Not the fucking papers, Sarah. My files, the Carson portfolio, the external drive." His voice dropped dangerously low. "What else did you see?" The children appeared at the back door, drawn by the commotion. Emma's eyes widened as she assessed the tension. Always so perceptive. "Daddy's home early?" Ethan launched himself forward, but Emma caught his arm. "Go upstairs," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mommy and Daddy need to talk." David's expression softened artificially as he looked at them. "Actually, kids, pack your overnight bags. You're coming with me to Grandma and Grandpa Parker's. They're not going anywhere." The firmness in my voice surprised even me. David moved with frightening speed, gripping my arm and steering me toward the front porch. Outside, now, the afternoon sun felt obscenely bright as he closed the door behind us, leaving the children peering through the window. "You think you're clever, snooping through my things?" His whisper felt more threatening than a shout. "I've been planning this for months. Everything's already in motion." "Planning what, exactly? Our divorce? Or the fraud?" I watched his face carefully. A flicker of surprise crossed his features before his mask returned. So dramatic. Always imagining conspiracies. He stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm taking the kids today. You'll sign the papers, giving me full custody. I get the house, the accounts, everything. You take what you came into this marriage with, nothing. And if I refuse," his laugh chilled me, "then I'll tell everyone about your mental breakdown, the paranoid delusions, the medication you've been refusing. I've got Dr. Marcus ready to testify about your instability." My head spun. "Dr. Marcus? I've never even met. Your therapist for the past year, according to my records. Such a shame how your condition has affected your memory." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your parents already suspect something's wrong with you. Remember how concerned they were at dinner?" The pieces clicked into place. The way he'd been isolating me from friends, controlling narratives, subtly suggesting to others I wasn't quite right, building his case while I'd been blind to it. "You won't get away with this." My voice shook as Emma and Ethan pushed open the door, their small faces frightened. David's expression shifted instantly to concerned husband. "Kids, get your bags. Mommy's having one of her episodes." "I'm not having an episode." I moved between him and the children, who now clung to my legs. A neighbor across the street paused while watering flowers, watching us with undisguised interest. David lowered his voice again. "1 month? Sarah, that's how long you have to accept my terms. After that, I'll destroy you, so completely the children won't even remember your name." He strode to his car without looking back, the perfect picture of a man temporarily retreating from an unreasonable situation. As his car disappeared around the corner, Emma looked up at me. "Mommy, why does Daddy want to take us away?" I had no answer that wouldn't terrify them more. Only the growing certainty that my husband was not just leaving me, he was hiding something worth destroying me to protect. By morning, the shock had hardened into something else, a cold clarity I'd never experienced. I called Janet Burke, a family attorney I'd interned with during law school, and secured the first available appointment. "He's been building a case against you for months," Janet said after I'd explained everything, her office feeling both safe and suffocating simultaneously. "The fabricated mental health issues, the isolation from your support system. It's textbook. Can he take my children?" My voice cracked. Janet's expression was grim. "With the resources at his disposal, it's possible. He'll hire the best attorneys." "If he's truly fabricated mental health records," she hesitated. "Sarah, did you find anything concrete about potential financial improprieties?" "Foreign accounts, transfers that made no sense, a connection to someone involved in securities fraud. That could be leverage, but we need proof. And quickly." She leaned forward. "Go home. Gather whatever documentation you can find. Financial records, communications, anything suspicious." I left her office with a plan and found my first obstacle immediately. My credit cards were declined. At the bank, I discovered all our joint accounts had been restricted. I could withdraw nothing without David's co-signature. He'd moved faster than I anticipated. When I finally reached home, my parents' car sat in the driveway. My stomach dropped. "There you are." My mother embraced me, concern etched on her face. "David called us. He's so worried about you, sweetheart." My father stood awkwardly in our living room. He said, "You've been struggling. Hallucinations, paranoia. Why didn't you tell us?" The betrayal felt like a physical blow. "None of that is true. He's lying to you." Their exchanged glance told me everything. They believed him, not me. "We've invested everything in David's firm," my father said quietly. "Our retirement, your future inheritance. He's family, Sarah." Ice flooded my veins. "How much?" "All of it." My mother squeezed my hand. "The returns have been remarkable. We'll finally take that world cruise next year." I struggled to keep my expression neutral while my mind raced. David hadn't just been manipulating me. My parents were financially entangled too. If his business was fraudulent, they would lose everything. After they left, promising to check on me daily, I searched the house systematically, looking for anything David might have overlooked. Most files were gone from his home office. His computer password had been changed. I found myself staring at family photos, wondering if anything had ever been real. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa, a mom from Emma's class. "Heard about the situation. If you need to talk." The message ended there. Ambiguous. How many others had David reached? What exactly had he told them? That night, after putting the children to bed, I found an old law school directory and called Adrienne Wong, now working for the SEC. We'd been study partners but had lost touch after graduation. "Sarah Parker," she said warmly, "it's been forever. I need your advice," I said carefully. Hypothetically, if someone discovered potential securities fraud, what would be the proper channels for reporting it? A pause. Hypothetically, that person should gather as much documentation as possible before approaching the SEC. Hypothetically, such cases are difficult to prove without substantial evidence. And if that person's own family might be implicated, another pause. They should consult an attorney specialized in whistleblower protections. After hanging up, I checked on the children. Emma was awake, staring at the ceiling. "Is Daddy coming home?" she whispered. "Not tonight, sweetheart. He took Mr. Buttons." Her voice trembled. Mr. Buttons was her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one she'd slept with since infancy. "When did he take it?" I asked, suddenly alert. "Yesterday. He said he'd keep it safe for when I visit Grandma's." David had never shown interest in the children's toys before. Why take a stuffed animal? After Emma finally fell asleep, I searched Ethan's room, examining his similar stuffed animal, an elephant named Trunk. Nothing unusual. Then I noticed Trunk's seam was slightly open at the back. Inside, my fingers touched something hard, a small thumb drive, deliberately hidden. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my old personal laptop, the one David didn't know I'd kept in a box of law school memorabilia. The drive contained hundreds of files, spreadsheets, bank statements, investor information, 2 sets of books, one for clients and regulators, another showing the actual state of Parker Financial Solutions. The legitimate appearing documents showed spectacular growth, consistent returns, expanding client bases. The hidden records told another story. Money shuffled between accounts, returns paid from new investor deposits rather than actual earnings. A classic Ponzi scheme, meticulously documented. And there, in a folder labeled Family, were my parents' accounts. Their life savings, over $2 million, existed only on paper. The real money had been transferred to accounts in the Cayman Islands months ago. I closed the laptop, heart pounding. My husband wasn't just divorcing me. He was preparing to disappear with millions in stolen funds, including everything my parents owned. The next week unfolded like a strategic chess match. David filed for emergency custody, claiming I was experiencing psychiatric episodes that endangered the children. The temporary order granted him visitation 3 days a week, while maintaining our shared custody until the hearing. Each handoff became a performance where I struggled to appear stable and cooperative while he played the concerned patient husband. "You're looking better today," he'd say loudly as neighbors happened to walk by. "Did you take your medication?" I smiled and ignored the bait, focusing instead on memorizing details: who visited his new apartment, which files he carried, any snippets of conversation I could overhear. Each night after returning with the children, I documented everything on my personal laptop, building my case methodically. The children became quieter, more watchful. Emma stopped playing with friends, preferring to stay close to me. Ethan had nightmares. Their teachers called, concerned about behavioral changes. Emma's withdrawal, Ethan's sudden aggression on the playground. Children sense tension, their counselor explained gently during an emergency session. They're absorbing your stress, even when you think you're hiding it. That night, I held them both as they slept, their small bodies finally relaxed in unconsciousness. "I'm going to fix this," I whispered, a promise to them and myself. I called my parents the next morning, inviting them to dinner without David's knowledge. They arrived looking uncomfortable, exchanging glances loaded with unspoken concerns. "I need to show you something," I said after the children were in bed. I carefully explained what I'd discovered about David's business, showing them sanitized versions of the documents that wouldn't implicate me in their removal. My father's face drained of color. "This can't be right." David showed us the quarterly statements just last month. "Those statements were fabricated," I said gently, "like the stories about my mental health." My mother started crying. "But our cruise deposits, the new condo we put money down on, all paid for with other investors' money. Money that doesn't actually exist in the accounts. Why would he do this to us? To you?" My father's voice cracked. "We treated him like a son." The question hung in the air, impossible to answer. The David they knew, the David I thought I'd married, had never existed. Their devastation hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about salvaging my reputation or even protecting my children anymore. Dozens of families would be financially ruined when David's scheme inevitably collapsed. The next day, I called 3 investment clients whose contact information I'd memorized from company events. I positioned my questions carefully. Had they tried to withdraw funds recently? Were there any delays? Had David suggested reinvesting rather than withdrawing? 2 brushed me off, clearly having received David's warnings about my condition. But the third, Eleanor Blackwood, a recently widowed retiree, hesitated. He said the market timing was wrong for liquidation, she confided. That I should wait another quarter. "Is something wrong, Sarah?" "Just doing some personal financial planning," I assured her. "Nothing to worry about." But there was plenty to worry about. Eleanor's hesitation confirmed my suspicion. David was stalling withdrawals, the classic signal of a Ponzi scheme beginning to collapse. That afternoon, David's assistant Megan called me, something she'd never done before. "I can't talk long," she said, her voice hushed. "I just wanted to say I've quit. And be careful. There are things happening that aren't right." "What kinds of things, Megan?" I've already said too much. He's been shredding documents all week, moving clients to his private portfolio. Just watch yourself." She hung up abruptly. The next day, a courier delivered a revised settlement offer from David's attorney. My breath caught as I read the terms. I could retain primary custody if I relinquished all financial claims and signed a sweeping non-disclosure agreement covering all aspects of our marriage and David's business dealings. Janet Burke, my attorney, was blunt. "He's trying to silence you. This NDA would prevent you from discussing his business with anyone, including regulatory authorities. Why offer me the children now? He's been building his case against me for months." "Because something spooked him. He's accelerating his timeline." I declined the offer through Janet, counter-proposing a more equitable division without the NDA. David's response came within hours. He withdrew all offers and demanded full custody and assets as originally stated. The investigative work consumed my nights after the children slept. I systematically documented transfers, identified patterns in the false returns, and compiled a list of investors from memory and the thumb drive files. The picture that emerged was staggering: over $50 million effectively missing, siphoned away through a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts. Emma found me asleep at the kitchen table one morning, printouts spread around me. "Are these Daddy's numbers?" she asked, her small finger pointing to a spreadsheet. I gathered the papers quickly. "Just some work, sweetie. Adult stuff." She studied my face with unsettling perception. "Is that why Daddy took his special computer from the basement?" My heart skipped. "What special computer?" "The one behind the wine rack. He came and got it last week while you were grocery shopping. Said it was our secret." A second computer. One I'd never known about. I hugged Emma tightly, thanking her while hiding my racing thoughts. That afternoon, I carefully examined the basement storage area. Behind where the wine rack had stood was a small safe I'd never noticed, now hanging open and empty. But wedged behind it was a crumpled envelope that had fallen unnoticed. Inside, a receipt for a safe deposit box at First Merchants Bank. The court date loomed just 10 days away. David grew increasingly unpredictable, alternating between charm offensives, where he suggested reconciliation for the children's sake, and thinly veiled threats about what would happen if I contested the divorce terms. During one custody exchange, he arrived with an unexplained bruise, darkening his cheek. "Your daddy fell," he told the confused children before I could speak. Later, I overheard him on the phone in my driveway. "She's becoming violent. Yes, document everything." Another fabrication for his case against me, another twist of the knife. That evening, my credit card was declined at the grocery store, the one personal account David shouldn't have been able to access. The bank confirmed someone claiming to be me had closed the account that morning. He was systematically cutting off my resources, isolating me financially and socially. 3 more friends contacted me with concerns about my condition, each conversation revealing different rumors David had spread. I was running out of time and options when David unexpectedly requested a private meeting without attorneys. "I'm concerned about how this is affecting the children," he said, voice dripping with rehearsed sincerity, as we sat in a cafe far from our neighborhood. "Maybe we can work something out." "What are you proposing?" I asked, neutrally. "You can keep primary physical custody." His eyes never left my face, studying my reaction. "I'll provide generous support. All you need to do is sign over the financial assets and agree never to discuss my business with anyone." He slid a document across the table, a simple confidentiality agreement. Why the sudden change of heart? "I'm not a monster, Sarah. I never wanted to separate the children from their mother." The lie hung between us. This wasn't compassion. This was desperation. Something had changed in his calculation. I glanced at the document, noting its comprehensive restrictions. I would be legally prohibited from discussing Parker Financial with anyone, including authorities, under penalty of losing custody and paying substantial damages. "I'll need to think about it," I said, folding the paper carefully. David's smile tightened. "Don't think too long. This offer expires in 48 hours. After that, we proceed to court, and I promise you'll never see the children again." As he walked away, my phone pinged with a news alert I'd set up for David's name. A small regional investment firm, similar to Parker Financial, had just been raided by federal authorities for suspected fraud. The walls were closing in on operations like David's. That night, I received an unexpected call from a blocked number. "Is this Sarah Parker?" a male voice asked. "Who's asking?" "Someone who lost everything to your husband 5 years ago when he was operating as Daniel Peters in Boston." My blood ran cold. "What did you say?" Your husband has done this before. Different name, different city, same scheme. I've been tracking him since he disappeared with our money." The caller paused. "He's planning to run soon." After hanging up, I immediately searched online for Daniel Peters' Boston investment fraud. Nothing appeared. Either the caller was lying, or David had successfully buried his past. With shaking hands, I called Adrienne at the SEC again. "I need to move forward," I said when she answered. "Not hypothetically anymore?" "Come to my office tomorrow," she replied without hesitation. "Bring everything you have." I spent the night making copies of all my evidence. One set for the SEC, another hidden where even David wouldn't think to look, inside the lining of Emma's old baby blanket, stored in a memory box. As dawn broke, I checked the children's passports out of habit and discovered they were missing from our safe. So were their birth certificates. When I dropped Emma and Ethan at school that morning, I hugged them longer than usual, fighting back tears. "I love you both more than anything in the world," I whispered. "More than Daddy does?" Ethan asked innocently. Emma watched my face with those knowing eyes. "Mommy's going to fix things," she told her brother with complete confidence. "Aren't you, Mommy?" "Yes," I promised, marveling at her faith in me. "I'm going to fix everything." What I couldn't tell them was that their father had booked one-way tickets to Grand Cayman for the three of them, departing the day after our scheduled court appearance. The SEC meeting lasted 4 hours. I provided everything I had. The financial records, the pattern of investments and withdrawals, the list of affected clients. Adrienne and her colleague, a serious man named Director Kaplan, asked methodical questions. I answered as thoroughly as possible. "This is compelling," Director Kaplan finally said, "but without access to the official books or testimony from someone inside the operation, it's your word against his. The thumb drive helps, but we need more." "We need to move carefully," Adrienne added, seeing my distress. "If he's alerted to an investigation before we have enough evidence, he could accelerate his plans." "He's already accelerated them," I said, showing them the flight information I'd discovered. "He's taking my children out of the country in 9 days." They exchanged glances. "We can't stop a father from traveling with his children without court intervention," Kaplan said carefully. "And a fraud investigation takes time, usually months." "I don't have months. I barely have days." My voice rose despite my efforts to remain composed. Adrienne touched my arm. "There might be another approach. If he believes you're complying with his demands, he might get careless." "You mean let him think he's winning?" She nodded, "while we build our case behind the scenes." And so began the most difficult performance of my life. I contacted David that evening, telling him I'd accept his settlement offer with minor modifications. His surprise quickly turned to smugness as I explained I just wanted this nightmare to end. "I knew you'd be reasonable eventually," he said, satisfaction evident in his voice. "We'll meet tomorrow to sign the preliminary paperwork." The next day, I sat in his attorney's office, the picture of defeat, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast, voice quiet. I signed the modified agreement that gave David control of all financial assets while granting me primary custody of the children. "You're doing the right thing," his attorney assured me, her expression almost sympathetic. "Mr. Parker has been extremely generous under the circumstances." David could barely contain his triumph as we left. "I always told you I'd provide for the children," he said loudly enough for the receptionist to hear. "I'm not the villain you tried to make me." Over the next 5 days, I continued the charade, cooperating with every request while secretly working with the SEC. I discovered selected financial documents David had requested and turned them over, carefully withholding the most damning evidence. I facilitated his conversations with the children while recording everything legally permissible. I pretended not to notice when he removed more items from the house during his visits. Meanwhile, I reconnected with my parents daily, rebuilding their trust as they gradually accepted the truth about David. Their anger and shame at being deceived transformed into determination to help me protect their grandchildren. "He seemed so perfect," my mother said tearfully during one conversation. "How did we all miss this?" "Because he wanted us to," I answered, understanding finally settling over me. "He studied us, learned what we wanted to see, and became that person." The SEC investigation progressed quietly. Adrian kept me updated on their careful approach to other investors, the subpoenas being prepared, the coordination with federal prosecutors, but the timeline remained worryingly behind David's planned departure. 6 days before our final court date, I discovered the true extent of David's fraud through an unexpected source. Megan, his former assistant, contacted me through a temporary email address. "I'm sending you something," her message read. "I can't be involved officially. I signed an NDA, and he knows where my parents live, but this should help." Attached was a client list 3 times longer than I'd compiled, with detailed information about investments dating back 5 years. The total missing funds weren't $50 million as I'd estimated, but over $80 million. I forwarded everything to Adrian immediately, my hands shaking. David hadn't just been stealing from current clients. He'd been operating his scheme much longer than anyone realized. That afternoon, David called, his voice unusually tense. "We need to move up the final signing. Tomorrow, not next week." "Why?" We agreed. "Plans change," he snapped, then forced a calmer tone. "I have a business opportunity that requires me to travel. The sooner we finalize this, the sooner we can all move forward." Ice formed in my stomach. "What about the court date?" "My attorney will handle it. Be at the bank tomorrow at 10. We'll sign everything, transfer the assets, and be done." My mind raced. "The children will stay with you until I return from my trip." As agreed, his voice softened artificially. "This is better for everyone, Sarah. A clean break." After hanging up, I immediately called Adrian. "He's moving up his timeline. Tomorrow." "We're not ready," she said, frustration evident. "The warrants are still being processed. We need at least 3 more days." "We don't have 3 days. He's planning to transfer everything tomorrow and then disappear." There was a long pause. "There might be a way," she finally said, "but it's risky. For you and for our case. I'll do anything. We need him to explicitly acknowledge the fraud. A confession, essentially. With that, we could get emergency orders." "How am I supposed to get that? He's never admitted anything to me." "People confess for different reasons, Sarah. Sometimes to brag, sometimes because they think it doesn't matter anymore. If he believes you're completely defeated, that the deal is done." I understood immediately. He might want me to know he beat me, really beat me. Exactly, but recording him without consent could create admissibility issues. I thought of the children's passports, already in David's possession, of Emma's solemn eyes, watching me, trusting me to fix things, of my parents' devastation, of Eleanor Blackwood and dozens of others who would lose everything. "I'll find a way," I promised. That night, I prepared the children for their father's regular visitation with special care. I helped Emma pack Mr. Buttons, freshly washed and repaired. I reminded Ethan to share his new drawing with Daddy. I hugged them both extra long at the door. "Remember our special game?" I whispered to Emma as David's car pulled into the driveway. "The one where you asked Daddy about his big trip?" She nodded solemnly. At 7, she understood far more than any child should have to. As David drove away with them, I returned to the quiet house and completed my preparations. I laid out my most conservative outfit for tomorrow's bank meeting. I backed up all my evidence to multiple locations. I memorized the key points Adrian needed captured in any confession. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I prayed, not to win or for revenge, but simply for protection, for my children, for the others David had victimized. even in some small measure, for the man I had once loved, whose soul had become so twisted by greed. My phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number. Target is moving all assets offshore tomorrow. We'll meet incoming wire at Grand Cayman branch. Plans to return for children Thursday, then disappear permanently. Be ready. Who was helping me from the shadows? The mysterious caller claiming to be a previous victim? Someone inside David's operation? It didn't matter. The message only confirmed what I already suspected. Tomorrow would decide everything. David believed I was completely defeated, surrendering everything valuable without a fight. His victory was so close, he could taste it. What he didn't know was that I had finally stopped playing his game and started playing mine. The bank's polished marble floor reflected morning sunlight as I entered at precisely 10 o'clock. David was already waiting in the private client room, his attorney beside him. His smile faltered slightly, seeing me alone. "Where's your lawyer?" he asked. "I couldn't afford her anymore," I replied quietly. "You've frozen all my accounts, remember?" His smile returned, broader now. "This won't take long. Just some signatures and fund transfers to finalize our agreement." The bank manager joined us, bringing the necessary paperwork for transferring ownership of our accounts and investments. My hand trembled authentically as I signed each document, watching our joint assets become David's sole property. "Now for the transfers," David instructed the manager. "I need to move these funds to these accounts immediately." He passed over a list of account numbers I recognized from the fraudulent records, the final step in his disappearing act. "Before we proceed," I said carefully, "I'd like a moment alone with my husband to discuss arrangements for the children." The manager and attorneys stepped out, closing the glass door behind them. David's expression hardened instantly. "There's nothing to discuss. You've signed everything. The deal is done." I took a deep breath. "I know about Daniel Peters." His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Who?"
"Your name in Boston. Before you came here and became David Parker."
A flicker of something, surprise, anger, calculation, crossed his face before disappearing. "You've been watching too many thrillers, Sarah. The stress is affecting your imagination. Emma mentioned your special trip. When are you planning to take my children to the Caymans?" That hit closer to home. His jaw tightened. "You're becoming paranoid again. This is why I needed custody." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "The thumb drive in Mr. Button's? The second set of books? The offshore accounts? I know everything, David." For a moment his mask slipped completely. Rage, cold and calculating, showed in his eyes. Then, remarkably, he laughed. "Always the attorney at heart," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Gathering evidence, building a case. But it doesn't matter what you know. It's too late. Did you always plan to steal from us? From my parents? Or was that just a bonus?" He shrugged, relaxing into his chair. "Your parents made it incredibly easy. So desperate to believe in guaranteed returns that defied market logic, just like all the others." My stomach turned at his casual dismissal of the damage he'd caused. "And me? Was any of it real?" "You were convenient," he said simply. A respected attorney from a good family, leaving her career to support her husband's business. Your credibility became my credibility. Your connections became my investor list. And now you'll just disappear with everyone's money, start over somewhere else with a new name. His smile returned, coldly triumphant. By this time tomorrow, these accounts will be empty, the money untraceable through a dozen shell corporations. The investors will spend years in court, getting nothing. Your parents will lose their house, their retirement, everything. He leaned closer. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You've signed away your right to even discuss my business dealings with anyone. The children will join me for a vacation next week, one they'll never return from. His eyes gleamed. You'll never see them again, Sarah. Consider it the price of your continued interference." The bank manager tapped on the glass, indicating she was ready to proceed with the transfers. David stood, straightening his tie. "Are we finished with our discussion?" he asked loudly, for the benefit of those watching through the glass. I nodded, appearing defeated. "Yes, we're finished." As the manager re-entered, I reached for my phone, sending a single text, "Now." The glass doors of the private client room crashed open. Federal agents flooded in, badges displayed, warrants in hand. "David Parker, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering," announced the lead agent. David's face contorted with shock, then rage as understanding dawned. "You set me up," he hissed at me. "No, David, you did this to yourself." As agents handcuffed him, Director Kaplan approached the stunned bank manager. "These accounts are now frozen, pending investigation. No transfers in or out." David struggled against the restraints. "She can't testify against me. She signed an NDA. She has no proof." Adrian stepped forward from behind the agents. "Actually, we have extensive documentation of the fraud. And as for the NDA," she smiled grimly, "confidentiality agreements cannot legally prohibit reporting criminal activity to authorities." "You'll never prove anything," David snarled as they led him away. "The real records are gone." But I knew differently. The full documentation Megan had provided, the thumb drive evidence, the testimony from other victims, it would be enough. As the chaos subsided, I sat alone in the private client room, emotions crashing through me. Relief, vindication, exhaustion, and an unexpected grief for the life and love I had believed in that had never actually existed. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from my parents. It was time to tell them it was over. Or so I thought. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of statements, interviews, and court appearances. David was denied bail due to flight risk, the one-way tickets to Grand Cayman being particularly damning evidence. The fraud investigation expanded rapidly as more investors came forward, encouraged by news of David's arrest. I returned home physically and emotionally exhausted, but for the first time in months, without the crushing weight of fear. The children remained with my parents, while I dealt with the immediate aftermath, sheltered from the media attention the case had begun to attract. "You did it, Mommy," Emma said during our nightly phone call. "You fixed it just like you promised." If only it were that simple. While David was in custody, his attorney was already filing motions to suppress evidence and challenging the legality of the recordings I'd made. The SEC investigation was proceeding, but financial fraud cases were notoriously complex and time-consuming. The money, including my parents' life savings, remained in limbo, much of it potentially unrecoverable. Janet Burke called with unsettling news that evening. The judge is considering a bail modification hearing. David's attorney is arguing the flight risk is mitigated now that his passport has been surrendered. "He has false identification," I reminded her. "He's done this before." We're emphasizing that, but without concrete proof of his previous identity, her voice trailed off. The uncertainty gnawed at me as I prepared the house for the children's return. I was hanging fresh curtains in Emma's room when the doorbell rang. My neighbor Diane stood on the porch, looking uncomfortable. "I've been meaning to talk to you," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I should have said something sooner. She handed me a small notebook. I started keeping track of things I saw and heard. When David would come home, who visited when you weren't here, the arguments, she hesitated, the way he talked to you when he thought no one was listening. The notebook contained months of dated observations, David's unexplained visitors, late-night activities, concerning interactions with the children. Diane had documented everything with meticulous attention to detail. "Why did you do this?" I asked, touched by her unexpected support. Her eyes finally met mine. "My ex-husband was like yours, not a criminal, just cruel in ways no one else could see." I recognized the signs. She squeezed my arm. I'm sorry I didn't do more. After she left, I immediately forwarded the information to Adrienne and Janet. More evidence for both the fraud case and the inevitable custody battle that would follow. I was about to call my parents when my phone rang, an automated message from the county jail. David had made bail. My blood ran cold as I dialed Adrienne. How is this possible? You said. A different judge granted a modified bail this afternoon, she explained, frustration evident in her voice. Ankle monitor, restricted movement, surrender of passports, standard conditions. He'll disappear, I said with absolute certainty. He's done it before. We have officers monitoring him. His accounts are frozen. He has nowhere to go. But I knew better. David always had contingencies. The mystery caller had said he'd done this before, disappeared with investors' money, changed his identity, started over elsewhere. I'd found no record of Daniel Peters, but that didn't mean the caller was wrong. It likely meant David was very good at erasing his past. That night, I took extra precautions, checking all doors and windows, activating the security system I'd had installed after finding the divorce papers. I called my parents, warning them to be vigilant, though I tried to minimize my concerns to avoid frightening the children. Sleep came fitfully, broken by every small sound. Around 3 in the morning, I finally drifted into deeper sleep, only to be jolted awake by a crash from downstairs. Heart pounding, I reached for my phone to call 911. The screen showed a notification, a security alert indicating the back door had been breached. Someone was in the house. I quickly locked my bedroom door and dialed emergency services, whispering my address and situation. As I waited for response, another crash sounded. Closer now, footsteps on the stairs. I know you're awake, Sarah. David's voice, slurred and dangerous, carried through the door. We need to talk about what you've done. The police are on their way, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. His laugh held no humor. Always so careful, so prepared. Did you prepare the children for life without their mother? The doorknob rattled violently. You've taken everything from me. My business, my reputation. His voice dropped lower. Now I'm going to take everything from you. The wood around the lock began to splinter as David's shoulder slammed against it repeatedly. In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching, but would they arrive in time? The door frame cracked with David's next impact. I scrambled backward, searching desperately for anything I could use to defend myself. The bedside lamp was too light, the dresser too heavy to move quickly. The sirens grew louder, but still too distant. You think you've won, David called through the splintering door. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Another crash, and the lock gave way. The door swung open to reveal David, disheveled, eyes wild, an almost unrecognizable version of the polished man I'd married. The ankle monitor still blinked on his leg. He'd violated bail conditions just by being here. How did you bypass the security system? I asked, trying to buy time, to keep him talking until help arrived. He smiled, a cold expression that never reached his eyes. I installed it. Remember, I know all the override codes. He stepped into the room. Just like I know all your weaknesses. The police are almost here. You're making things worse for yourself. Worse? He laughed bitterly. They've frozen my accounts, seized my records. My clients are lining up to testify against me. What exactly do I have left to lose? I recognized the dangerous calculation in his expression. A man with nothing left to lose was capable of anything. The sirens had stopped. Were they outside already? Why wasn't anyone breaking down the door? The children, I said quietly. You still have them to think about. Something flickered across his face. Not remorse, but recognition. You're right. I do have the children. He took another step toward me. And after tonight, they'll need their father more than ever. Poor motherless children. Traumatized by finding you. You won't get away with hurting me. Hurting you? He seemed almost amused. "Sarah, I'm not going to hurt you. You're going to hurt yourself." From his pocket, he produced a small bottle of pills. My name on a prescription I'd never filled. Severe depression, suicidal tendencies, all documented by your therapist, Dr. Marcus. Such a tragedy, but not entirely unexpected given your mental state. The realization hit me like physical blow. He'd created a paper trail for exactly this scenario. My suicide following a mental breakdown. The ultimate contingency plan. "No one will believe it," I said with more confidence than I felt. "Everyone will believe it. I've made sure of that. Your parents, your friends, even your neighbors. They've all seen your deterioration. All those concerned calls asking about your well-being. Those weren't just to isolate you, they were to establish a pattern." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. David hadn't just been building a case for divorce and custody, he'd been laying groundwork for my death. And after my convenient suicide, you take the children and disappear. I was playing for time, but also piecing together his plan. What about the fraud charges? Dead wives tell no tales. Sarah, without your testimony, the case weakens significantly. My attorney will argue persecution of a grieving widower. Meanwhile, I access my contingency funds, which you never found, by the way, and start over elsewhere. Outside, I could hear movement on the front porch. Help was here. But David stood between me and the door, the pill bottle extended toward me. "We can do this the easy way," he said quietly. "Take the pills, write the note I dictate. Go to sleep forever. The children never see violence. They remember their mother as troubled but loving." "And the hard way?" His expression hardened. "I'm wearing gloves. There's no evidence I was ever here. The security system will show no breach. After I'm done, I take a pill myself, just one, for the ambulance to pump from my stomach when I discover your body tomorrow." The grieving husband who tried to save his wife. My mind raced through options, each worse than the last. The police would be entering the house any moment, but would they come upstairs immediately? Would they hear us? "Why did you do it?" I asked, desperate to keep him talking. "Not just the fraud, all of it. Our marriage, the children, was any of it real?" Something shifted in his expression, not softening, but a different kind of calculation. Pride, perhaps. The need to be recognized for his brilliance. "You were perfect," he said, almost reflectively. "Respected family, legal background, intelligent but trusting. The ideal cover for operations like mine. The children," he shrugged, "necessary for the image. Family man, community leader, financial wizard. And Boston, before you became David Parker?" His eyebrows rose slightly. "You really did find something. Impressive." He took another step closer. "Daniel Peters was careless, made enemies. David Parker learned from those mistakes. How many others? How many identities? How many families?" A cold smile. "You'd be my third tragic loss. Both previous wives were quite cooperative in the end. It's amazing what people will do when they realize it's their only option." My stomach churned at the casual admission of multiple murders. This wasn't just about fraud. I was facing a practiced killer who had done this before and gotten away with it. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Finally, help was coming. But I could see in David's eyes that he'd heard too. His expression hardened as he lunged forward, grabbing my arm and yanking me toward him. "Change of plans," he hissed. "They'll find a struggle. You attacked me in your delusional state." I defended myself. Tragic accident. As his hands moved toward my throat, training from a self-defense class I'd taken during law school flooded back. I dropped my weight suddenly, throwing him off balance, then drove my elbow hard into his solar plexus. He gasped, grip loosening just enough for me to twist away. "Up here," I screamed toward the hallway. "Help!" David recovered quickly, rage replacing calculation. "You little—" He charged forward as the bedroom door crashed open, revealing not police officers but Emma and Ethan, pajama-clad and wide-eyed. "Daddy!" Emma's voice was small, confused. David froze, momentarily stunned by their presence. "Kids, go back to your room. Mommy and I are talking." "You're hurting her," Ethan said, his lower lip trembling. "No, buddy. We're just playing a game." Emma's eyes narrowed with a child's perfect clarity. "You're lying. You're always lying." Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs behind them. Police, hands where we can see them. In that frozen moment, with officers flooding the hallway, David's face transformed, the mask falling away completely to reveal the stranger beneath. His eyes met mine with pure hatred before he lunged toward the children. If I can't have them, I moved without thinking, throwing myself between him and the children as officers tackled him to the ground. We all went down in a confusion of limbs and shouting. Pain exploded in my side. Had he been holding something? A knife? Emma's scream seemed to come from very far away as darkness edged my vision. Strong hands pulled me back, voices asking questions I couldn't process. David's face contorted with rage, then resignation as officers secured him. "She attacked me," I heard him saying, his voice regaining its reasonable tone despite the circumstances. "She's been unstable for months. Ask anyone. Check with her doctor." Blood spread across my nightshirt. He had managed to stab me during the struggle. As paramedics rushed in, I fought to stay conscious, to speak the words that mattered. "He's done this before," I gasped to the officer kneeling beside me. "Boston. Daniel Peters. Previous wives." "Don't try to talk, ma'am. Help is here." "No, listen. He's killed before. Check Boston records. He admitted everything. It's all recorded." The officer's expression changed. "Recorded." With bloody fingers, I pointed to the bedside clock, the nanny cam I'd installed after finding Emma crying in her room weeks ago. It had captured everything: David's confession, his murder plot, the admission of previous killings. Understanding dawned in the officer's eyes as the paramedics lifted me onto a stretcher. "We'll check it right away." Emma pushed past an officer to grab my hand. "Don't leave us, Mommy." "I'm not going anywhere," I promised through the pain, holding her gaze. "I'm right here, always." Over her shoulder, I saw David being led away in handcuffs, his confident facade finally crumbling as he realized what had happened. The careful plans, the meticulous groundwork for my suicide, the previous murders he'd gotten away with, all undone because he'd underestimated me one final time. As they carried me from the room, his eyes locked with mine in one last exchange. In that moment, I saw something I never expected: fear, real fear, in the eyes of the man who had spent years making me afraid. "It's over," I whispered, as much to myself as to the children holding my hands. "It's finally over." 6 months later, I stood in my new office, arranging family photos on the desk. Emma and Ethan smiled from a recent beach trip, their faces more carefree than I'd seen in too long. My parents posed beside them, my father's arm protectively around my mother's shoulders. New beginnings for all of us. The small law practice I'd established specialized in helping fraud victims navigate the complex process of recovery. The sign on the door read simply, "Sarah Parker, Attorney at Law, Financial Fraud Recovery." A narrow focus, but one I understood intimately now. David's trial was still months away, but the charges had multiplied as investigators uncovered the full extent of his crimes. The Boston cold case involving Daniel Peters had been reopened, with DNA evidence linking David to the disappearance of his previous wife. His fingerprints matched those found in an abandoned car belonging to his first victim, a woman who had committed suicide 15 years earlier in Seattle under circumstances eerily similar to what he had planned for me. The financial damage was substantial. Many investors, including my parents, recovered only portions of their investments. The offshore accounts proved challenging to trace, with significant sums still missing, but we were rebuilding. My parents had moved to a smaller house near us, finding unexpected joy in their simplified life and daily involvement with their grandchildren. The children still attended therapy, working through the trauma of that night and the revelations about their father. Emma had nightmares sometimes, but fewer than before. Ethan asked difficult questions. I answered as honestly as age-appropriate explanations allowed. They were resilient in ways that amazed me daily. My own recovery had been both physical and emotional. The knife wound had healed, leaving a scar that pulled sometimes when I reached for high shelves. The psychological wounds were slower to mend, but I was making progress, learning to trust again, not just others but my own judgment. A knock at my office door pulled me from my thoughts. My first official client had arrived, Eleanor Blackwood, the widow who had first confirmed my suspicions about David's stalling tactics. I can't thank you enough for taking my case, she said as I welcomed her in. The court-appointed attorneys have been overwhelmed. It's what I do now, I replied simply. Help people recover what was taken from them. Not just money, though that mattered. Dignity, security, trust in their own perceptions. All the things David had systematically stripped from his victims. That evening, as the children chattered over dinner about school and friends, my phone buzzed with a notification, an email from the correctional facility where David awaited trial. He had been writing regularly, messages I typically deleted unread. His attempts to manipulate hadn't ended with his arrest. This one had a different subject line, "You'll never find it all." I hesitated, then deleted it without opening. He was still trying to maintain some control, to keep me reacting to him, but I had learned the most important lesson of all. My power came not from fighting him, but from choosing my own path forward. "Mommy? Are you listening?" Emma asked, tugging my sleeve. I smiled, returning fully to the moment, to what mattered most. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm right here." That's the end of the story. If you were Sarah, would you have had the courage to stand up to David like she did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more thrilling stories just like this, hit that subscribe button, then click to watch our next unforgettable story.